Well, we're back with the Legends podcast. I'm Jeremy,
I'm Dylan.
and we have a few things to talk about. The Geeks Attic may or may not be on here. We don't know. I texted him. He's like, "What time?" And I said, "In 2 minutes." I lost track of time. I was up till midnight last night, and I woke up at 8, which is like really late for me.
Really? I was so tired. I went to bed at like 10. I'm like, I haven't been to bed this early since like middle school.
How do you function? That's like where I usually go to bed, but then again, I'm usually up at 5 in the morning.
Yeah.
I'm a very much a morning person.
I'd usually go to bed around 11, 11 if I was working, 12, midnight if I wasn't. Yeah.
Well, we have a few things to talk about. First thing up is, of course, what Dylan's been working on very hard, which is the Twin Suns fundraiser.
Yes. Let me see if I can put this link into the live stream chat. Oh wait, you can't put links into.
Yeah, no, because this is Google Plus and
Right.
It sucks.
No, this is YouTube, and YouTube hates their creators.
It hates everything, dude.
It hates everything. Speaking of Twin Suns, I'm trying to like tell them like, okay, look, I get what we were going with the YouTube, but honestly, YouTube just is not the future of anything.
No, unfortunately, it pains me because of how long I've been on here. It really pains me to say that, but it's just terrible.
It's the only thing keeping it going is it's the only platform that does what it does. As soon as another platform comes up that does what it does, YouTube is dead.
Well, the problem is no one wants to accept another one of these, you know?
Yeah.
Actually, why don't you can actually put it up in the chat, in the top of the chat, and some people will actually get a hold of this.
So yeah. So anyway, let me get the link.
But anyway, just pitch this one for those of us who don't know what it is.
I can't put web addresses. All right, so Twin Suns is back. We are doing another book drive fundraiser. So we are raising money to purchase books to donate to children's hospitals like we've done in the past. Children's hospital visits, we've done 4 of them in the past. We went to children's... hold on, let me get the... This is the problem. We've done so many different donations now that I've lost track of them, so I've had to keep a file.
Well, you've actually been a part of these. You're a distributor, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I've been to 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. We've done 5 different donations in total. I've been to 3 of them. So the first one we did was back in a part of the Billboard Project. We donated about 22 books to the Dobson Ranch Library in Mesa, Arizona. The Celebration fundraiser, we did 2 different hospital donations. One was to Florida's Children's Hospital, which we donated around 61 books, and these were books that had been, while we were at Celebration, people just came to our booth and they would give us books. They would donate books to us, and we would give them raffle tickets to get some prizes. And then we also had autographed prints of Shannon McRandall. If they gave us like 3 or more books, we gave them one of those. So we got 61 to the Florida's Children's Hospital. And then with the extra funds that we raised to go to Celebration, because we didn't need it all, we ended up purchasing an additional 61 books that went to Children's Hospital Los Angeles. That was the first one I went to. And then for the Star Wars Reads Day fundraiser, was the first time, this was last year, was the first time that we actually, not only we were going to the hospitals dropping off the books, but we actually got to physically hand each of these kids a copy of the book that and like have a little conversation with them. We partnered with the 501st so that they had a good interaction with that. We ended up donating around 287 books to Children's Hospital of Orange County. And then earlier this year, we donated 160 books. Same thing we partnered with the 501st. We didn't go door to door with this one at the hospital patients. there was more of an area at the hospital, and all the kids came to us. And we actually, on that one, I said this the last time, but we had someone donated to the hospital some Star Wars action figures. So we gave them books and action figures, but we gave around 160 books to the Phoenix Children's Hospital. So that brings us to where we are today. And we at Twin Suns have this problem when we do these hospital visits, is that we bring too many books. Like, we bring more books than there are kids that are actually at this hospital. And this is, in our opinion, a good thing, because we now know that we can use the same amount of money that we get normally in these fundraisers, but do multiple hospitals. So at this time with the Valley of the Suns, we are targeting 2 hospitals. One hospital that's going to be in Pittsburgh, and one that's going to be in the Bay Area, in San Francisco Bay Area, San Jose, that whole area. You're up in Northern California. Well, that's Central California for you, but you're close to there. But yeah, the plan is 80 books per hospital, which brings the total to around, it's about $10 per book is our price point. So every $10 that gets donated to us gets us roughly a book. And then there's $100 cushion on top of that just to cover like all the website and PayPal fees and all those sorts of things. So the goal is about $1,700, of which we've raised $555. And we got about 2 weeks left, so still a bit to go. But yeah, the 2 donations, the Pittsburgh one will be happening in October. October is the month that has Star Wars Reads Day, or now it's Star Wars Reads Month. So it'll be an officially licensed Star Wars Reads event. We just jump on those because we give books. That's reading. So that'll happen there. If you've watched our old podcast, Amelia is the one that's heading that donation. So she'll be the main point of contact that's going to be doing that donation. And then in December, we'll be doing the donation in the San Francisco area, which I will be heading. I'll be driving up there. Oh. And yeah, it's just donate if you can. Again, it's only $10. If you want to donate one book, it's literally only $10. Since Twin Suns is a 501c nonprofit organization, all of your donations are tax deductible if you live in the United States. And just help us get some great books to some kids who really need them.
Excellent. I want to take this time to answer a question we just got in the chat, because I'm very bad at monitoring the chat, so I decided to change that this time. Basically, Dylan can't answer this question because it involves new canon. And this is from Nightwing. I know y'all don't really like the new canon, but can y'all rank the books from favorite to least favorite? I don't remember a good chunk of the new canon books. In fact, I've never read A New Dawn, and I've not read Dark Disciple. There are only 2 adult.
This would be a good question for Geeks Addict if he comes on.
Yeah, but I can give you my top 3 best new canon books and my least favorites. The
Aftermath trilogy.
Yeah, the Aftermath trilogy I'd rank as the epitome of terrible. Just one bad nightmare, along with Heir to the Jedi in a close second. And Phasma. Phasma was pretty bad, too. Also, but for best, probably goes Thrawn. Catalyst, and it's a toss-up between Rebel Rising, which is a young adult novel, Lost Stars, which is also a young adult novel, and for adult novels, Twilight Company. Yeah, I'm in the minority there. A lot of people don't like Twilight Company or didn't care. Otherwise, everything.
Didn't like Phasma. I've heard great things about Phasma.
Phasma is weird and dumb. Watch my review.
Because Phasma does so little in the movies, it kind of makes the books like not matter, or
no, it's not Phasma herself that's the problem. It's everything else. It's like they want to make a Mad Max novel in Star Wars, and the term nuclear fallout is used, which I don't think needs to be in the Star Wars universe. I don't think we need to have nuclear weapons. I think that's lazy writing.
Well, they
come up
did
with
have
something.
them, but I don't know. In the their super weapon, they're like pleb tier super weapons in this Star Wars Legends. They exist, but if you want mass destruction, there are far better and more efficient ways to do it than nuclear device, even though they do exist.
Um, everything else is kind of mediocre. Some stuff like oh geez, I'm looking at the books and I'm not remembering them. Well, Force Awakens and Last Jedi's novel adaptations are not that great. I just did the Last Jedi review not too long ago. Rogue One's is pretty decent. Um, Lords of the Sith is okay. Last Shot was actually pretty decent. I haven't done my review of that, but that will be happening in the not too distant future.
So
We've got a ton more questions.
We got some people joining in. So those just joining in, we just had someone. Nightwing just asked Jeremy, because I don't read new canon, to rank his new canon from best to worst. And I also earlier just mentioned that Twin Suns has another fundraiser going. There's 2 weeks left. We're raising funds to buy books for Children's Hospital. So go to twin-suns.net/donate, or you can go to the Twin Suns page, and there's a post from today with the link. Donate, share it around. Every bit helps. Anyway, you're caught up.
Okay, Dark Snovia, we will get to your question at the end when we do questions from the last video. Don't worry. Also, this video will be the audio from this video will, of course, be on iTunes and Google Play Music. So you can check it out on there, and you can even download it. Infinity Nexus asks, A New Dawn was pretty good, but I agree they're mostly been weak. Okay, that wasn't a question, but I just read that. W. Badkins 3152.
Hi, Bill.
Wow, a Legends podcast that isn't 2 a.m. for me. LOL. This is because it's my one day off a week, and I really needed the therapy of doing Legends today.
Right.
Again, from Infinite Nexus, 40th anniversary of A New Hope didn't even come with a dust jacket. Fuck.
Did you buy it off eBay?
Yeah.
That kind of happens sometimes.
I have a first print hardcover of A New Hope. It's really beaten up, but I bought it and Splinter of the Mind's Eye for $40, I do believe.
Wow.
Yeah, there was a really good deal. I couldn't pass it up, even though it's probably the roughest hardcover in my collection. And that's including library books that I've bought. Let's see. Nightwing again. Have y'all seen the alternate cover for Thrawn Alliances? Yes, it looks awful. It is some of the worst Photoshop I've ever seen. Anakin has no neck, and his head is way too big for his body. Thrawn looks fine, though. I don't know. Have you seen it, Dylan?
No, I don't really unlike Dave Filoni, I'm not really a cover connoisseur, except when it comes to Brazilian covers.
Oh, the Brazilian covers are fucking beautiful. It almost makes Heir to the Jedi look like a good novel at that point.
Yeah, if you don't know, buy a plane ticket to Brazil, go to the nearest bookshop, and literally just like bask in the glory of what they get.
Okay. From Infinite Nexus, brand new from Wordery. I'm not familiar with that site, but I know you're from the UK, so yeah, that's kind of unfortunate. You should send it back and get a new one. From Nightwing again, is Splinter of the Mind's Eye considered Legends? Yes, it's the beginning of Legends, actually. It's the first Legends novel, and I do believe it came out before the original Marvel Comics went to Legends, too. But don't quote me on that one. So, okay, let's get back on track, because I think we're caught up on the comments for right now. And we will get into some West End Games / Fantasy Flight news.
So this was big. So Fantasy Flight Games, who currently owns the license to the tabletop RPG for Star Wars, recently announced that the Star Wars role-playing 30th Anniversary Edition is on sale. You can pick it up at their website for around $60, or like that's pretty much the MSRP. So it's about $60. It includes 2 source books, the role-playing game or 2 books, the role-playing game and the source book. The role-playing game is divided into 3 sections. There's a player section, a game master section, and an adventure section. Those are, I guess, kind of self-explanatory. And the source book is just is divided into 15 chapters. There's general spacecraft, starfighters, combat, starships, space transport, droids, repulsor lift vehicles, Imperial Guard vehicles, alien creatures, general equipment, lightsabers, stormtroopers, rebel bases, Imperial garrison, heroes, and villains. So, to me, and then I do not own this. I do not own this because I don't have the money to do this. I don't buy this, but
I know, dude. I feel you there.
And I have not played the original West End Games source book, nor do I have any of their source books. But the way that they are the way they are marketing this, at least, and from what this is saying, this looks like an authentic and like 95 to 100% just clear-cut copy of the original Star Wars role-playing game by West End Games, just reprinted and resold so that you don't have to pay $200 on the secondary market to get your hands on this stuff.
Yeah. Well, as Dylan's witnessed this, when we went to Gen Con a few years back, he saw me buy a ton of West End Games source books. I don't have everything, but I have a good chunk of it. If you want someone who has everything, that'd be Matt Wilkins. I'm very excited about this because I've been wanting to play some West End Games Star Wars material for a while, and now that the main books are going to be back in print in some form, that's really awesome. I don't have one of the 2 books in that set. I don't think I have either of them because technically my Player's Handbook's a 2nd edition. So, and I don't know what the difference is between the 2.
So yeah, this is quoting the Fantasy Flight website. You'll find all the original game materials just as playable as ever, and they're presented with the same graphic design and fake in Star Wars universe advertisements for the Imperial Navy, the R2 astromech droid, and more. Even the book's use of black and white blue ink and full color sections has been recreated, along with its use of still photos and concept art, some of which have been updated for this 30th anniversary edition. So yeah, it's basically the game. It's not the original, but it's as authentic to the original as possible. So go ahead and get that if that's something you're interested in.
I'm
obviously if you already have all the West End Games source books, I mean, I don't think you need this. But if you have some of them, if you have some of them or you don't have any and you like to get into it, then yeah, this is a good thing. Nightwing, where do the role-playing games place in their tier system? If you're talking about the hierarchy of canon, the role-playing games they're kind of S-canon, I guess. For the same reason the video games is because the events that you're playing in probably took place depending on what your game master does, but depending on how the gameplay goes, it cannot be canon. Like, I mean, for example, you could play a campaign where the Empire win the Battle of Endor, and that's obviously not canon, but if you have an Imperial characters, you can do that. But as for all the source book material, like the factual data on like the ships and weapons and stuff, that is all pretty much considered to be canon. The adventure gaming stuff and how the campaigns go and story ideas is more S-canon.
Nightwing, are any of the Old Republic expansions considered Legends? They all are.
All of Old Republic is Legends.
Even though it's still being made, it is not multi-canon. It's not new canon. They basically, for the most part, Disney's not touching anything pre-Phantom Menace. There's a Yoda storyline in the Disney Marvel crap comic that happens before Phantom Menace, and there's a Darth Maul comic that happens before Phantom Menace, and that's it. Nothing. They aren't touching anything pre-Phantom Menace for the time being. So, yeah. Let's see. Is there any other...
Well, there was the Hasbro thing. They posted a short, I think it's like 3 or 5 minutes. It's been throwing around Q&A on their Instagram, I think it was, where basically they kind of dropped a subtle hint. They basically said, and not I quote, but what they said is that they have freedom. They have a lot of freedom to do what they want, so they can do pretty much any characters they want, and that includes Legends. So they didn't confirm that they are doing Legends, but they confirmed that they can do Legends.
They pled fifth, is what Dylan's saying. Yeah. Let's see, what else? To go back to the previous topic with the role-playing games and their ranking in canon, a lot of the West End game stuff in particular is referenced in Fate of the Jedi.
Mm-hmm.
Just to the nth degree. They just started, Trident in particular was tying everything together.
And even the early stuff, like if you, they even mentioned this in the article. Again, I'll quote from the Fantasy Flight page. These books were sent to Timothy Zahn as references when he started to develop Grand Admiral Thrawn in his Thrawn trilogy. That was actually George Lucas. All the early Bantam authors, where he would basically give them the source book, the West End Games source books, and like the role playing stuff, and like, here, read this, use this into your stories. So a lot of the early Bantam stuff does come from West End Game, or is inspired by West End Games. Not like any of the adventures; those didn't come into play until again, Fate of the Jedi, but alien species, the planets, technology, and all that, those were all from the West End Games, if you've read the Bantam books.
To answer your question, your inquiry, Infinite Nexus, about Revan's of maybe, there are some maybe stuff. We know that Darth Bane is in both canons, mainly because he shows up in Dave Filoni's Clone Wars and the Lost Missions. Will his spirit and Yoda have a confrontation? It's not the same Bane. Revan's a maybe because, well, Revan was actually cut from the Abeloth episodes that I hate, with the brother and the sister and the father, with Anakin being the chosen one.
When you get to Fate of the Jedi, you'll have a whole new appreciation for that.
I know, but it was just so badly executed. It was so ham-fisted and terrible. And why did Ahsoka have to be there? She served practically no point. That's a thing. Revan was in that. But, yeah, I mean, and then the Darksaber from Clone Wars and Rebels, its origin takes place in the Old Republic. So there is talk of the Old Republic, but it's not the games, really.
And that's actually a good point. That in the chat, that like, just because they bring a character into canon, it's not the same character.
Yeah, Thrawn's a good example of that.
Like, I actually had a good example. Have you watched, Jeremy? Have you seen the Avatar: The Last Airbender?
I've seen 2 episodes.
Okay, never mind. Anyway, there's a very popular character, and if you've seen it, Prince Zuko, who, kind of a spoiler, he goes through a 3-series redemption arc essentially, and kind of becomes a secondary hero to Aang.
Mm-hmm.
And the example I always like to use is his redemption arc is more not only based on him being redeemed, but like the events that transpire in his experiences throughout his trying to capture Aang, then his exile into the Earth Kingdom, and then his him being introduced into the Fire Nation. And it's a thing whereas if you take all those experiences away and you just stop at book 1, if you keep everything the same up until book 1 and you make all of book 2 and 3, you change all those experiences, he doesn't have that redemption. He's not the same character at the end of it. And that's kind of how you should look at the new canon characters from Legends. They share the same name and they may have some of the same history, but they're not going to have all the same experiences. They're not going to participate in all the same events. And as such, they're not going to become the same characters that we knew. If any of you know what I'm talking about, please, because I'm sure I'm just going right over. I'm whooshing Jeremy right now, but yeah.
No, that's all good. I'm just trying to keep up with the chat going on here.
We actually have a lively chat. We need to do more. We need to not do late night. This is what I'm learning. We need to do not 2 a.m. East Coast podcasts.
Yeah, no, this is a good time. We just need to let Geeks Addict know that it happens when he's not out grocery shopping.
Oh, he's grocery shopping?
Yeah, he just texted me. So no Matthew Wilson, the Geeks Addict. So yeah, Kanan does talk about stuff like that. This is stuff above Dylan's knowledge in the new canon. Which, if any of you read that Kanan comic, that's really good. It's like the only good Marvel comic that's come out.
Is it better than the Poe Dameron comics?
Oh, yeah. Poe Dameron comics are 50-50 trash. Poe Dameron's comic basically sometimes is a bad representation of X-Wing Rogue Squadron. And just
okay, here's a question. I don't know if I've asked you this. Why is Aphra, the Aphra comic, so popular?
Because she's not as annoying as she was in Vader's comic. Aphra's comic is kind of the Deadpool-esque comic, you could say. It's more tongue-in-cheek. This latest arc's kind of very unpleasant, and I'm not enjoying it too much, but it's just kind of goofy. It's actually a fun comic. Unlike the main Marvel Star Wars comic is by far the worst comic ongoing series that they have for Star Wars. It is so bland and terrible. And I hate when people are like, oh, it went downhill at a certain point. I'm like, it went downhill at the end of issue 1. It slightly redeems itself, and then it goes into stupid. It goes into stupid all the time. Those first couple arcs are almost unreadable. Their events are not good. The original Darth Vader series wasn't that good either. I don't know why people like that now, because it got canceled because people didn't like it, and now all of a sudden everyone's like, oh, it's the best, blah, 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 that Darth Vader in it. The new Darth Vader series is a lot better.
How is in the comics, if you're talking about the last 2 to 3 years of Dark Horse compared to, well, we're in 3 years of Marvel now, how would the two compare?
That final era of Dark Horse was just so sad.
Yeah, that's why I'm asking. I'm generally curious. How do the two compare?
This is worse. Because you had some gems in that final era of Dark Horse. Because Legacy 2 was pretty decent. I would say Legacy 2 is pretty good. I know that I'm in the minority there with Legacy.
I would say it was fine with the exception of the rushed ending, but again, the rushed ending was a byproduct of being canceled. Even Dawn of the Jedi, because the first two sucked, but then there was Force War, which is actually getting good. I didn't
think they sucked. I thought they were pretty decent. They weren't great, but they were okay. It was just different. But then you had Brian Wood's god-awful run of Star Wars that's practically unreadable. You had things like Rebel Heist and Darth Maul's Son of Dathomir that no one asked for.
Mm-hmm. The 50th Vader series.
The original draft of the Star Wars, if you remember that, Dylan, that was bad.
I haven't read that.
That's garbage. I reviewed it. I reviewed that years ago now.
Was
But
Was that when Purge Tyrant's test came out, or was that earlier?
Yeah, I would consider that the beginning of the end, when all the Purge stuff started happening. I would honestly say Knights of the Old Republic War is the beginning of the end, when they did all the war miniseries.
Oh my gosh, yes. Well, Legacy War was actually good.
Legacy War was good.
But yeah, KOTOR War. If you read all 50 issues of KOTOR and you love you love the KOTOR comics, do yourself a favor and don't even read the KOTOR War.
Well, read it and don't think of it as a continuation of KOTOR, is how I look at it. Look at it as its own entity, because Zane's a lot older in it, and he's a very different character.
There's no Griff, there's no Jerry. 2 out of 10.
Yeah, they show up at the end.
I know they show up at the end probably because they got angry fan letters like, you have a perfect triad of characters and you take out 2 of them.
Yeah. Let's see. And yes, I have been reading the Vader comic. The Vader comic is what I've always wanted out of a full Darth Vader series, which is him hunting down Jedi. I like how they've used the Inquisitors from Rebels. I actually enjoy the Inquisitors in Rebels more so now than I did initially watching Rebels. I, of course, love the Grand Inquisitor in Rebels, but I haven't liked any of the other ones until this comic. Granted, I think I'm an issue behind, but I'm behind in all the Marvel stuff because I'm suffering from what we call Star Wars fatigue, which is our main topic today. Shall we get into Star Wars fatigue, Dylan?
Sure.
It's a thing. It's a thing I've personally been suffering from since like March. February or March, I really started to burn out on Star Wars. And it's an oversaturation of a franchise I love. That's what it basically comes down to. Dylan, do you suffer from Star Wars fatigue?
Well, I don't follow canon. So all of my Star Wars that I get has already been written, and I'm just kind of going at my own pace.
Mm-hmm.
I also have other interests that take up some time. Like, I haven't been reading nearly as much, or I read more during the school year than I do in the off year, because during the school year I sometimes have like an hour in between classes with nothing to do, so I'll just read. But when it's like the summer and I'm home, or the intersession and I'm home, I'll do other things. But
I just stopped reading Star Wars pretty much. I haven't read anything since Most Wanted, which came out a month ago. No, 2 months ago. It came out in May. That was the last Star Wars thing I've read. I've been literally reading. The closest thing I've read to Star Wars is I've read a bunch of Aliens and Predator novels. But overall, like right now I'm reading Stephen King's The Outsider. Like, that's really, really different than Star Wars. Which have you read any Stephen King, Dylan? No. Stephen King's a dirty pervert. I'm just gonna say that right now. The Outsider doesn't try to hide it, which I respect it for. You know that this child was horribly assaulted and murdered in like the absolute most appalling way possible. And then it's like, okay, what do you do from here? And that's what I like about it. It's a sort of a whodunit book. It's kind of more grounded in reality than most of his stuff. I like it a lot just because I think it's probably one of his most solid written works. But then again, I'm only 20 chapters into it, and there's like over 100 chapters. So it could be a steaming pile of dog shit, and I just haven't gotten to it yet. And we get our explicit tag.
We always get our explicit tag.
Oh, no, we don't usually. I listened to most of our Legends podcasts, and most of the time we don't earn an explicit tag. It's just the last 5 we have. It's actually not usually my fault, is what I've found. It's usually Dylan's fault, believe it or not.
What?
Yeah,
Criffing Shkuta?
you curse more than I do. Well, you drop the F-bomb more than I do on Legends. I try not to do it.
Yeah. I didn't used to, and then I started working in the automotive industry, and it just ruined me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But list my favorite Marvel Star Wars series, the original Marvel comics from 77 to 85. That's my favorite. I don't think it's favorite. Kanan and the new Vader series are the only other two good ones. Miniseries wise, Chewbacca's okay. And
is it better than the other Chewbacca miniseries?
It didn't make me cry. So yeah. The other Chewbacca miniseries, well, I'll get to it eventually, but it's a bunch of short stories pretty much.
Yeah.
So
if you haven't read Vector Prime, you shouldn't read it.
Oh, absolutely not. It's basically, I call it the epilogue of Vector Prime. It's like you're not going to get any. You're just going to be upset and confused if you didn't read Vector Prime.
Yeah.
That's one of those Legends titles where you have to have read another one in order to understand what's going on.
There are a few, like, again, going back to Twin Stones, there's a reason that every time we donate books, like, we're giving them a self-contained story or a book one. We're not going to be like, here's Legacy of the Force Invincible, enjoy. here's the Force Heretic trilogy of New Jedi Order, enjoy. What's going on?
Exactly. Force Heretic was a thing.
Actually, it's very good. Force Heretic
spent $70 getting Force Heretic in hardcover.
The Force Heretic trilogy is basically wrapping up some unresolved plot points from the Bantam novels.
And ignoring Waru.
Right, except for Waru. Every other, like, hanging plot thread, like, are these guys still a threat? What about this? Is this going to come up? Yeah, Force Heretic's like, yeah, we got that. We got you, fam.
Yeah, the Sissy Rook show up. I remember that.
Yeah, the Sissy Rook, the Yavithra show up. These are all different times. These are completely different books that they happen, which is kind of why I liked it, because each different book is like wrapping up some Bantam storyline.
Yeah, because really, Bantam introduced a whole lot of stuff and didn't finish any of it.
No.
The exception of Thrawn's storyline.
Yeah, that was about it. And that's because they got the same guy to finish it off. Like, all right, Tim. And Tim finished off some things. Like, he finished off the Stackpole stuff. And he finished off Stackpole and Olsen stuff, as well as some of Kenneth J. Anderson's. But the other, I guess I'll call them like the one-off Bantam novel, Bantam people, they didn't get a chance to. So, Force Heretic was. Oh no, the phone's ringing.
Oh yeah, we'll just deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
So let's. There were a lot of things that in later years of the EU got wrapped up pretty good. Crimson Empire. That was another series that happened near the end of Dark Horse. Crimson Empire 3.
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever
I don't remember anything about 3. I remember 2 was really good. I remember 1 was really good. I remember 2 had Nominor in it, and it was awesome. I can't remember.
Before they had established who that was.
Right. You're just like, oh, who's this?
I didn't get when I read it because I'd been so removed from New Jedi Order at that point.
Well, in my opinion, that's how you should read it. You should read it not knowing who that is.
Yeah, I was just like, what's happening? And I thought they'd continue it in Crimson Empire 3, and they don't. No, Crimson Empire 3 is bad. It finishes off Kirk Canos' story, but it switches Luke's and Leia's characters around. Like, Luke's not accepting of Kirk Canos than Leia is, and it doesn't make any sense. You can compare it to... It was just... Well, you really can't. I was going to make a parallel to Allegiances, the Timothy Zahn novel. Allegiance. Which is a novel by Timothy Zahn where Luke and Han's characters don't fit, but this is a little worse than that. It's just they're completely reversed. Because Luke's always the accepting one. If I'm not, tell me if I'm wrong, Dylan.
No, you're not.
Luke's always the one he forgives his father, and Leia has a hard time forgiving Vader. And that's like a big thing throughout Bantam, specifically in that early expanded universe stuff.
There is in Bantam, kind of getting back to this, there's a reoccurring character. I don't think this is much of a spoiler. Brachus, who is literally one of Luke's students who falls to the dark side. And he just keeps coming back in Bantam novels. He's never really the main antagonist, but he sometimes is just mentioned. Sometimes he'll help an antagonist. And I think on one time he was a main antagonist. But like the recurring trend is every single time Luke doesn't really try to kill him. He's always just like, I failed you, but like, come on, can you like not be? He does his Luke Vader thing, and it never works. But he keeps trying it until finally Brachus does. Until Brachus finally gets written out. But he never really.
Brachus never the antagonist from Jedi Outcast. That's another one of Luke's students that goes to the dark.
Yeah, that's another one. But they were both part of the original class. Brachus and that other one were both in the original class.
Even though they're not referenced in Jedi Academy.
Well, Jedi Academy, there's mention that there's a dozen that graduated, and that's not counting Mara, Kyle Katarn. That's not counting Mara Jade, Kyle Katarn, Corran Horn, because they all left, or Kip Duran because he left as well. So there's 16 Jedi. Those 4, the 12 that graduated. Of the 12 that graduated, I think there only actually names 7 of them. So there's like 5 that don't get named who you can just assume that those 5 are 2 of those 5 are them. And there's 3 others who are, I mean, who cares? They don't become important anyway.
Oh my. So,
I saw that question as well.
AJ Rocks. It's good to see you, bud. Waru for president. There we go. It's already been posted, and it's neither of us said anything.
So in 2020, we're going to be campaigning for Waru for president. We're going to try to get him on the ballot. I don't think it's going to happen because I don't think we have enough signatures. But if he's not on the ballot, make sure you write in Waru for president. Even if you're not in the United States, you need to, whenever you do your votes for your like prime minister or whatever your head of state is called, you need to write in Waru. Okay, we need to make this happen. He's not only going to be the president of the United States, he's going to be the president of the world. We need to make this happen.
Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, I agree that it was not a good movie, J-Rocks. Last Jedi was pretty terrible. Last podcast, I ranked it as one of the worst, and our other guest host threw a fit.
Yes, Nightwing. Brachus was in the Young Jedi Knights novels.
Oh, yeah, he was, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Everyone was in Young Jedi Knights, though. It's sort of like the most EU-esque of the young adult novels.
Well, because they talked about it. They, what was it? Kevin, no, it wasn't. It was Michael Stackpole. He was writing iJedi. And he was writing iJedi at the same time that Kevin and Rebecca were writing Junior Jedi Knights, or Young Jedi Knights. So he calls them because he's like, hey, by the way, are you doing anything with Exar Kun's temple in your Young Jedi Knights series? And when Kevin goes, no, he says, good, because I'm blowing it up. But yeah, they basically, again, how much the old Bantam novel authors cared about it is they would actually talk to each other. They would call each other and be like, hey, I'm going to do this thing. Just so you know, is it okay if I do this thing in your book? It is? Okay, cool. I'm going to do this thing. And there are a few of them, like he said that he knew that Booster was going to need the Air Adventure in the Hand of Thrawn duology, so he made sure to give it to him during the X-Wing novels. Things like that. And there's so many others I'm just blanking on, but Those were two of the ones that I always remembered. Anyway, it's kind of getting buried, but Nightwing asked a question: list some of your favorite instances of comic events being referenced in books, both Legends and canon. I can't speak to Legends, but when the Jedi Academy trilogy outright said, by the way, Dark Empire was canon.
Yeah, that's the big one. Anything from Labyrinth of Evil.
Mm-hmm.
Sora Bulk, for instance, is referenced a lot. Quinlan Voss's storyline in the Republic comics is referenced. Anytime James Luceno's involved, you're guaranteed you're going to get a comic book reference. In Plagueis, we get the original Darth Maul comics reference, along with a ton of other smaller references. I do believe Jedi Council Acts of War is referenced in there too. Anytime Dark Empire's reference, I like that, because I think
that was such a big moment, because if you ever have a discussion with people who don't believe the expanded universe of canon, they will sometimes pull up a quote from Sue Rustoni where she says that the comics aren't canon. And the quote is from like 1991, right as the Heir to the Empire was coming out, the Thrawn trilogy was coming out. And the reason she said that quote was because at that time it was true. The comics were not canon. Dark Horse was not canon. It wasn't until Kevin J. Anderson referenced Dark Horse comics, the reference not only that the Dark Empire comics happened, but also that Exar Kun was a thing in the Jedi Academy trilogy, that they started considering, okay, now it's the books and the comics that are canon, which is kind of something that's kind of weird with when you study the canonicity of the expanded universe. The line that we now know, which is the most recent one of everything that's not either Tales or Infinities is canon, that hasn't always been the
Oh God, no. There was a point when the comic strips were more canon than the original Marvel comics.
Mm-hmm. For a long time, the Marvel comics weren't canon at all. So that's the one of that everything that isn't Tales and Infinities is canon. That is correct to say, and that is the most recent one we got within Legends continuity. So it is correct to say that yes, as of now, everything within Legends continuity, everything that isn't Tales or Infinities is canon. However, at different points in times, that wasn't always the case. So you've got to be careful with how you quote things, or when people use quotes against you, because you can say like, well, here they say this thing wasn't canon. And you can be like, that's because at that time it wasn't considered canon. It wasn't until this thing came out that it became canon.
Yeah.
So interesting tidbit of Star Wars canon history.
It was written after, but they wanted them to release at the same time.
Yeah, Dark Empire was coming out at the same time. It was around the same time. But again, Bantam and Lucas Books didn't consider the comics at that point canon. So they didn't really talk between the two. Dark Horse and Bantam at that point didn't really talk. So they just wrote two different stories that happened around the same time, and then they added the Dark Empire happened 2 years later. And then it wasn't until Kevin J. Anderson came along that they got the timeline right, and everything was made to fit together.
Mm-hmm. Well, also, Heir to the Empire has a problem with it. The Clone Wars are not set correctly.
Well, that's only if you have a first edition version.
Which I have multiple editions of Heir to the Empire.
Yeah, if you have a later edition, they fixed that. But yeah, there's a line that basically, I think it's like the Clone Wars was 10 years ago.
Yeah. But that was from the Nogary's perspective, and they were lied to. So,
which is, again, just because a character says something as a fact doesn't mean it's true. Mm-hmm. Cough, cough, Fantasy Flight, cough, cough.
Yeah, we got a question from Dark Snovia that he said, do you think the Clone Wars should be removed from Legends? Why or why not? I think the TV show itself should be removed, but not necessarily the novels that happened around there. Mainly because they reference other EU. I know that one of them, Callistia, shows up, and I wouldn't want that removed because we need more Callistia, right?
Yeah, it's just the problem with removing Clone Wars entirely from the expanded universe canon is that it's the first domino. Once that falls, there's other things that tie into Clone Wars, but also tie into other parts of canon. So you have to take those out as well, or you have to start looking at. You have to take them on a case by case basis, or looking at them. It just becomes a mess. You take out the one card at the bottom, and the whole tower falls. It's kind of that situation, which is why, in my opinion, the Fantasy Flight retcon works so well, because it retcons the Clone Wars, but it does so in a way that they can still exist, and therefore the other things can still exist, but the continuity issues are fixed. You were saying?
How are the Clone Wars books? They're, the way I look at them, they're hit or miss. Most of them are hit. If we're talking books that take place in the Clone Wars, they're more hit than miss. Basically, my go-tos for good content is more the comics books. The Republic line is probably your pinnacle of best Clone Wars material. But Labyrinth of Evil is excellent. Yoda Dark Rendezvous is also really good. But then there's stuff like Mace Windu Shatterpoint, but I hate Matthew Stover, so that's why I don't like it.
Matt didn't like it either.
Yeah, but Matt likes Matthew Stover, and I don't like any of his work. I think it's all over.
Right, which is why I'm saying that might be a more common opinion than you think.
Yeah, the Cetus Deception is considered really bad. It's actually ranked as one of the worst opening sales for Star Wars book ever that isn't new canon.
Yeah, didn't it do like 74 its opening on the USA Today or something?
Something like that. Wild Space and Take No Prisoners, which are direct tie-ins to the Dave Filoni series, are considered good. Stealth and Gambit are considered cash grabs, though. It's hit or miss.
I hear great things about the MedStar duology.
Oh, God, yeah. MedStar's well-loved. I have not read MedStar. I have not read anything by Michael Reeves. I don't know why. I just never have, because I've never read Shadowhunter. Well, not all of Shadowhunter. So I guess I have read some Michael Reeves stuff.
See ya in Infinity Nexus.
Let's see here.
I'm just watching the chat now because we're out of topics.
Any cool? Yeah. Well, Gingy Tartakovsky's series is also really good too. If you want like a cartoon to watch.
Yeah,
I have issues.
It has the hallway scene before the hallway scene.
I have issues with it because of its problems with Labyrinth of Evil.
Yeah. You recently read Labyrinth of Evil, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
So finally we can have this conversation. What are the problems? Because I know it has continuity errors. I don't know what they are.
Shaak Ti never faces off with Grievous.
Okay.
Ever. The two Jedi that do protect the Chancellor in Gingy Tartakovsky series are there. There's no of the over-the-top Gingy Tartakovsky, running through the train station and stuff. Right. There's Royal Guards are there, which the Royal Guards are Crimson Guards in Labyrinth of Evil instead of the Blue Guard, Senatorial Guards from Attack of the Clones. Grievous and the Magna Guards just straight up storm into a bunker and take out Palpatine's protectors.
In the cartoon, the opening scene in the office was actually a bunker scene.
Well, I mean, they escape to a bunker, and Grievous is hunting them, but it's not over the top like it is in Gingy Tartakovsky's series. Also, Mace Windu isn't really involved in the siege at Coruscant. He's in that bad area of town where Sidious has been having his meetings. and he's trying to find the dark side, and then Coruscant's sieged, and he doesn't ever interact with Grievous. So yeah, it's just some weird things like that. Because in Genndy Tartakovsky's series, Mace Windu and Yoda are on the front lines fighting side by side, and that's not happening. Also, Anakin and Obi-Wan have a kind of confrontation with Count Dooku, which Dooku sets a trap and escapes, and then it's told that they go immediately to the siege at Coruscant. They don't go to that planet where Anakin liberates those alien creatures. So, yeah, that's pretty much it. Which is weird because they reference season 1 of Genndy Tartakovsky's Clone Wars in there.
Well, that was already out. The issue was that season 3 of Clone Wars and Labyrinth of Evil were both in production at the same time, and neither of the two productions knew about each other or talked to each other. So that was the reason given for the retcons, for the issues. As for Nightwing, how do they retcon this stuff to make it fit? If you're talking about the Fantasy Flight Clone Wars retcon, they basically said that during the reign of the Empire, Compnor was going back through the histories of the Clone Wars and putting them under review for intellectual purity, and it's alluded that they were outright altering them. Because
even Pell is killed in the Clone Wars when he's also killed in Coruscant Nights. He's gunned down in the street.
Right.
That's an example of that.
The way that the retcon, or at least the most commonly accepted version of the retcon, is that when you watch the Clone Wars animated series, what you are watching is the Compnor propaganda films, which are inspired by true events, and a lot of the events actually did happen. However, the way that they're depicted, and in certain ways of certain characters being involved and whatnot, and their actions have probably either been altered, falsified, or in some way.
Mm-hmm.
So essentially, it bumps the Clone Wars TV series down to S canon.
Yeah,
and you should just treat it as altered propaganda.
As for Labyrinth of Evil and Genndy Tartakovsky's Clone Wars, it's not really talked about.
I think the retcon Matt gives was that they depict different perspective or areas of the battle.
But that doesn't work for me.
Yeah.
It doesn't work enough. I don't know. It's just an error there. There's just like one error in the Star Wars timeline.
Yeah.
Not bad. Let's see.
And the funny thing is, I hear great things about Labyrinth of Evil, and I hear great things about I know that there's great things about the Clone Wars series. But again, in the over-the-top thing, I always thought that is just... The Clone Wars was a lot of rule of cool.
Mm-hmm.
And Star Wars didn't really have a lot of that. So...
Have you all read Star Wars Propaganda, A History of Persuasive Art in the Galaxy? No, I have not. Have you, Dylan?
No, I've never heard of that.
Yeah, no. Sorry. Sorry, Nightwing.
Do we have questions from last week? We can go into those.
I read Dark Snovia's because he commented on the other video, and it popped up. If you want to go check it out, go for it.
Yeah. Let's at least get that one out of the way.
Have you read anything, Dylan, recently?
I'm reading The Phantom Menace.
Oh, that's right.
The Battle of Naboo is about to happen. It hasn't happened yet, but they're gearing up for it.
How do you like it so far?
It's interesting. It's mainly the movie. I find myself completing lines before they happen. Because I guess I know The Phantom Menace better than I thought I did.
Yeah. I really like Terry Brooks. I think what he did change with dialogue is a lot better.
Yeah, I like the additional Anakin scenes. I thought they were good.
That Tusken scene's really interesting, considering what happens in Attack of the Clones.
I know. That made me think, like, did they know?
They just fucking murder everyone? I'd probably not.
If you ever,
probably did, but probably kept that to himself.
if you ever, is Terry Brooks still alive?
Yeah, he's still writing
Shannara. Anyone who's listening to this, if you ever meet Terry Brooks, ask him if he knew when he was writing that Tusken Raider scene what would happen in Attack of the Clones.
Yeah, that'd be interesting to find out. I'd love to meet Terry Brooks. I like his Shannara books. I find it to be he has some of the best names for creatures and characters ever. Just really cool names. Yeah. Would you guys like games like Star Wars Battlefront 2, Battlefront Part 2 campaign mode with old stories from the original movies? Maybe. I'm kind of burnt out.
We already answered this question.
Did we?
Yeah. Should it be removed from Legends? Why or why not? Yeah, we already answered that.
Fuck.
I guess we're just answering chat questions now. Or if there's something else. I can't think of anything else that came up.
Have you heard of the news about the Star Wars game in development? A little bit. I don't believe anything the fucking Disney says at this point.
Yeah.
And there we go, our explicit tag. I dropped the F-bomb. Whoops.
It's yeah. It's a game. I'm pretty sure it's being made by EA. If not, you can correct me, but
seriously, we did a Game Pappy show, was it last week, 2 weeks ago, about the EA, and we talked briefly about the EA panel and how embarrassing it was. No one cared. They're just big liars about everything.
There's a great GIF of I can't remember one of it, but there's like an EA guy going like, "Is this good for the?" We have to think to ourselves, "Is this good for the player?" And literally, if you watch any video about EA in like the last 2 or 3 years, they'll play that clip like 5 or 6 times. Ironically, like, yeah, they did this, and they'll play the clip. It's just so great. There's a lot of great ones. That's a good one. If you were aware of the Axeman, he's done a lot of good videos about EA and what they've done. Honestly, I just need to get back in my soapbox here about EA. Like, seriously, we've known about this for, I want to say, over 10 years. EA has been doing this for at least 10 years, and they still do it. And why do they still do it? Because people complain. People complain, but they still buy their stuff. If you want this to stop buying their stuff. It's simple.
All we can see right now, Dylan, is your toupee. You just keep disappearing.
Sorry, I knew I was in rant mode, so I was trying to get away from the cameras.
Yeah, as long as they're not personal questions, you can ask a few non-Star Wars questions. Might as well. Yeah.
It just became a Q&A, didn't it?
It just became a Q&A, but it's all right. I've been meaning to do a Q&A for a while. We might as well do it as a Legends podcast. More people will watch it. Seriously.
We already have 3 likes on this video. Wow.
And we've had a consistency of 4 people watching this whole time.
It's probably the 4 people that are in the chat.
Oh, I have no doubt.
1, 2, yeah. I see 4 I see 4 names in the chat.
That's okay. They're interacting.
We're gonna break the YouTube algorithm. By the way, I've been watching some videos recently that trips on how to get around the algorithm for copyrighted content if you're using it fair use, but you don't want it to auto flag you. Apparently, what you need to do is you need to show less than 6 seconds of the copyrighted stuff, and then have 2 seconds of dead silence, black screen, and then you can keep showing it. And if you do that, you can get around it. It won't auto flag you. They can still, if they see it, they can still manually flag it, but they can't auto. The algorithm doesn't detect it.
I don't watch a whole lot of TV. Nightwing. I right now my big thing is I watch Kitchen Nightmares a whole lot because they released the first season unedited on Amazon Prime. If you have Amazon Prime, you can stream it for free. And man,
I don't have cable.
Yeah, you don't have cable. I don't really have cable anymore.
Who made the older Republic games? If you're talking about
BioWare?
Yeah, BioWare made all of them actually.
BioWare, yeah. Currently owned by AV.
Yep.
Yeah.
There's a great meme. Again, another meme that's like 12 years old, where EA, like basically it's EA and like another guy, and they walk, and another guy. It's like two guys. One of them is EA, and one of them is like whatever game developer they're working with currently. And they walk to a pit and it's like, where are we going, EA? And then EA shoots them, and their dead body falls into a pit of other dead bodies of other like game developer franchises that they've killed.
Favorite Star Wars YouTuber? Probably Matt Wilkins or the Geeks Addict. Or Forklifter Matt's good. Dark Snovia is always fun if you want to watch a rant.
Mm-hmm. I also like Star Wars Explained, though he does a lot of canon stuff now, so I kind of don't watch as many of his videos anymore.
I hate watching Star Wars Explained.
He was good like 3 years ago, and then he started doing more canon, and then I just lost interest. Eckhart's Ladder is pretty good as well, because he does a lot of what I like. Like, he does battle analysis and like hypothetical things, like even in other between like universes, like could the UNSC Infinity beat a Star Destroyer, or like what happened at the Battle of Tapara, things like that, which I always like. He does canon stuff too, but he does more Legends because he's more familiar with Legends, so that's good. Jen Sarai is great as well. All the Council Force cast who do like the Versus series, because they get really in depth. They really do their research. If there's like, they'll mention like powers, like, yeah, during this one comic, this Jedi was able to do this exact power. So you got to put that into like, it's crazy. And I don't always agree with their assessments, but the amount of research they put into it is like honestly impressive. So they're good as well.
Yeah. Anyone else I watch? Let's see. Infinite Nexus. That's a good one.
Mm-hmm.
He's in the chat. He was in the chat.
I can tell you a bunch of people I've been watching who just been shitting on new canon or the movies.
Good. There's some just really bad Star Wars channels out there, though.
Yeah.
There's some just garbage. And it's very popular trash.
Well, trash is popular. Lowest common denominator. It sells.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Fuck that. I feel like Tristan.
Oh, no. I apologize. I apologize to everyone watching. We've devolved into the part of the podcast where we make fun of our friends.
Tristan was talking about how he hates his job yesterday. Was it yesterday? No, it was a couple days ago. And I'm like, oh, Tristan. And I called Matt and like, look what Tristan posted.
Bill's just like, no. Were you on that call when he just went off on Bill for no reason?
Yeah, I wasn't that drunk, Dylan.
No, it wasn't as bad as the one where you couldn't go up your stairs.
Was that the same call?
I can't remember. All of our Skype calls meshed together now.
Yeah, that was when in my heyday of drinking, and I tried to roll up the stairs.
Mm-hmm.
Like literally a rolling motion up the stairs with my tablet with everyone on Skype. Did I scream a lot? I think I did.
I can't remember. I can't remember because I was laughing too much. There was the best that I wish I'd recorded when Josie and I were on, and then Tristan called us, and with all of his friends, and his friends started. We were just laughing at the stuff his friends were saying. It was exactly what you would expect Tristan's friends to be like.
Oh yeah, that aren't Edward.
Oh yes. You know, for all we've talked about Edward, I haven't actually been in a lot of Skype calls with Edward.
Aren't you fucking lucky.
I think I was in like 2 podcasts with Edward, and that was it.
Well, he used to be kind of a semi-regular on Django's reviewers hangouts, and
Yeah, those were the 2 that I was on.
when he fucking threatened to force choke Tristan.
Yeah, I was on the first one it was the second one, but it was the first one I was on. Then I was on the one right after that when it all went down, and he had the glorious line that we've been quoting for the better part of 3 years now.
It's good to weed when you're angry at someone.
Oh my gosh.
Twiston.
One joke. We've been running one joke for...
I'm sorry, it's still gold. I think I did it on Princess of the Universe.
Here's the thing, though. Us just saying it doesn't do the joke justice. You have to go back to that. I think it was Star Wars Reviewers Hangout number 3 when he does it. Like,
no,
it's the brooding. It's the buildup. It's the brooding beforehand.
He wouldn't fucking talk. He's muting himself.
The sigh when it got to him throwing back the hood
and staring up into the air, well, because he's dressed like the Unabomber.
For like a good 10-15 seconds of dead air, and then him like looking down and being like just mumbling how he's reading the Darth Bane trilogy. And
it was either Darth Bane or Revenge of the Sith. It was Revenge of the Sith.
Was it? I thought it was Bane. I can't remember, but it was whatever he was reading. And I was like, it's just good to read when you're really angry. It's the whole performance. If we got again, go to Django DJ Django with a DJ Django Fett's channel. It's DJ it's D Django basically. Look up the Star Wars Reviewers Google Hangouts, and again, I think it's like the 3rd or 4th one. It's just great. It's absolutely fantastic.
J-Rocks, is it true there'll never be any new statues or action figures of the Princess Leia slave costume? That was what we were told, but it doesn't seem like they've done anything about that. You can still get the slave Leia like costume for really cheap.
Yeah, I think that's officially licensed, not like secondary market stuff.
Mm-hmm. Do you like the scissor twirl? Okay, it's pretty good.
Ever go to any links I give you? Look, that was one time, and my links are funny.
What did you send him like some weird porn?
No, I sent him a video of a cat. I'll leave it at that.
Is it one of those fucking morbid videos you like to send me? I get so pissed when you do that.
Possibly. I have a dark sense of humor, okay?
Shithead.
I was trained that if you have to be able to laugh at everything, because if you can't laugh at everything, you get sad, and being sad is not good. So just learn to laugh at things.
Don, that cat died. This is
cat's
like Nolan's
always
9/11 video.
Oh my god!
Fucking
the one that broke you.
God.
The one that you got up out of your chair and went nope, and you were gone for like 10 minutes.
I went up to my kitchen and I sat and drank a glass of water.
And I'm just like, Jesus Christ, Jesus Nolan, you broke him. You broke him. I didn't think that was possible.
Do you remember when Nolan would like go to the bathroom with the door open?
I remember the one time when me and Johnny were on a call with him. He said, "Hey, I'm going to the bathroom," and he was gone for like 6 hours. I'm not kidding. It was just, and he left his little like I forgot what it's called. It was like the Funko doll of Jar Jar Binks with like giant eyes in front of the screen. So no one is just staring at this for 6 hours. And after like hour 1, was like, so is he coming back? And like we forgot about it. And then like by hour 5, we're like, did Nolan say he was going to the bathroom? Should we call the cops? And you're just like, yeah, our friend said he was going to the bathroom and he's not back. Can you like make sure he's okay?
Fuck, those are the days.
That was one of the days.
When Josie asked Johnny to speak English.
Yeah, Django really dropped off with video output recently. It's kind of not his fault. It's just something that happens eventually. But the good thing about that is his old videos aren't that hard. You don't have to scroll as much to find his videos. Unlike people who do like daily content and like I want to see a video from 3 months ago and you have to scroll like, oh my god, can you like not upload this many videos, please?
Oh, yeah, there was some interesting stuff. Well, Coruscant wasn't called Coruscant originally. It's called Imperial City. I really like how it looks in Steve Perry's novel Shadows of the Empire with the blimps. Which, granted, it's all canon. Because there really isn't anything to talk about.
Well, they did call it Coruscant, but they also referred to it as Imperial. Their two were like
because
interchangeable.
Zahn didn't want to call it Imperial City, which is why the name Coruscant exists. In any early Western games source material, it's called Imperial City. Yeah. But, I'm not too... I haven't read everything that involves Imperial City, so I can't give you a full, like, ooh, this is what I like and this is what I don't like. Because a lot of times with stuff pre-Phantom Menace, like Dark Empire, Coruscant is under siege. So it's not really active. Which that's one thing I didn't like about Dark Empire was why is Coruscant being attacked now? Didn't make a whole lot of sense.
Well, go for the capital. It's a common military strategy.
But if they're in the far reaches, why Coruscant first?
Well, in Coruscant is in the core. And even at that time, the Imperial Remnant... What?
It's at 000. That is true, yeah.
So at that time, the Imperial Remnant had basically complete control of the deep core. And because the New Republic didn't have the star charts at the time, they couldn't chase them in there. So Coruscant was in striking range. And again, because their power base was in the deep core, it makes sense that would be one of the first targets. Now, if you're going for a long-term war, why don't you, I don't know, maybe attack Fondor or Kuat so, you can rebuild your fleet? That would be
Fondor's in both cannons.
Well,
I forgot.
It should be. It's where they make Star Destroyer and Super
Star
Destroyer.
Because in the Han Solo movie, they say they're made in Corellia.
They make... What?
Yeah,
that really makes Star Destroyers.
Corellia looks nothing like EU Corellia in the Solo movie. It looks like a shithole. Does
it look like how Nar Shaddaa should look?
Yeah, that in Flint, Michigan. Wouldn't drink the water. Sorry to anyone who lives in Flint still.
By the way, if you're living in Flint, if you are from listening to this podcast and you live in Flint, do yourself a favor. When you go to the voting booth and you see an I next to any politician's name, vote for the other guy, please.
Why they changed the design of the Noghri so much? I don't know. I don't even remember what it looked like originally. It's been too long.
Yeah, I don't know either.
There's just certain things. Some artists do certain things. Like Griff looks different depending on... what artist was drawing Knights of the Old Republic. It's their artist choice.
The lightsabers in Tales of the Jedi changed colors depending on which panel you're on.
Yeah. Oh God.
Yeah, I know Nightwing. There are many ship manufacturers, but the ones that were specifically building Star Destroyers, Kuat and Fondor were the main two. At least in Legends continuity, and at least during the time of the Empire. After they fell, they kind of off-shipped. They started, I think Sluis Van started making them. Bastion started making them because they didn't have the... Even Yaga Minor, I think, had some shipyards on it.
Yeah. I'm tired, man. Feel like we've been doing this for 90 minutes.
Less than that. We started late.
Not by much.
It didn't matter because we got people.
We did. It's a miracle. Holy shit. Anything else you want to talk about?
I don't know. I don't know if there's a lot that's been in the news Star Wars related recently.
Well, I mean, no one gets along, but that's been a problem forever. It's just now that news finally is like, ooh, Star Wars fans don't like each other. I'm like, well, no shit.
Yeah, right.
Have you not been paying attention to the internet ever?
It's like people don't understand the fact that people are different from each other. And it's like the bigger a fandom it gets, the more they're not going to agree on things. The only fandoms that actually agree on everything are fandoms that are one person. And there's, I don't know, people talk about like the toxicity of the Star Wars community and all that. It's like, it's not that bad if you stay in your lane. It's just bad if you get into the arguing and infighting. And there's only infighting because there's so many of us that we all want different things. And actually, I do want to talk about something here. Why is it bad to criticize things now?
Because people are fucking babies, as Tristan would say.
It's like, I think there are people mainly amongst the people who are like the writers and the creators and the media who don't understand where criticism comes from. Like, there are some, and like on YouTube, you'll see this, that they just hate to hate because it gets them views. But the people who don't have an audience, the people who don't make a living off of criticism, who do criticize what you do, the reason they do it is because they care so much about the franchise that you are running that when they see it's not good, when they see it's not living up to what they think is good, they want to fix it. Their criticism is pointing out the flaws. And a lot of times they'll not only point out the flaws, they'll point out things like, why didn't this happen? Or this happen? Or this happen? It's because they're trying to, in their own way, fix the problems that they are seeing. And they're calling out the problems that they see because they want what you're doing to be good. And when it's not good, they want to fix it. It's like if you watch sports, for example, and you're just like, and your team's bad. Your team's like 10 games under 500, and there's one guy who every single time he comes up to the plate, he strikes out. Obviously, all the fans are going to be like, why is this guy still in the starting lineup? He strikes out every single time. Why don't we trade him? Why don't we call this guy up from the minors? They're not criticizing that guy because they don't like him as a person. They're not criticizing because the team's decision to keep putting him in the lineup because they don't like the team. They're criticizing him because they want their team to win, and the team is not winning, and they are trying to help it win by telling them what they think it should do. And are they right all the time in their criticisms or their fixes? No, but you have to understand where it's coming from. It's not coming out of malice. It's coming out of shoots. Can't think of a word, but it's not coming out of malice. It's coming out of a desire to help.
Yeah.
That's my rant on that. I was going to write an article about that, but I couldn't put it to words until that rant.
It's all good. Saved it for the show. All right. Do you want to call it there?
Well, we have a question on Nightwing. Why didn't it raise any questions when the Republic started having Star Destroyers that look like ships from the Sith Empire? You're talking about during the 10 years of buildup. I would imagine that it's very heavily implied in the Plagueis novel that Damask Holdings is pretty much single-handedly funding not only the Republic but the CIS as well. Mm-hmm. And it's actually extremely convoluted because the Kuat drive. Hold on, the Kuat drive yards. Let me look this up. But it's like crazy. So, for example, the DC series of blasters are made by Blast Tech Industry, which is a subsidiary of the Techno Union. Techno Union. And yeah, Kuat Drive Yards as well is a subsidiary of the Techno Union. Kuat Drive Yards also has their own subsidiary, Rothanan Engineering, that makes all their tanks, their airships, and their assault crafts, and all those kind of things. So literally, you have the war that the Techno Union, who are against the Republic, is not only against the Republic, but they are actively building the ships, the weapons, the tanks, and the tanks of the people they're fighting. And the Internet IBC is not only against the Republic, but they are funding the production of an army and the production of the ships, tanks, weapons, and the weapons of the enemy. So it's extremely convoluted in that way. And I imagine that in order to get those deals to happen, a lot of it was hush-hush under the radar. People were bribed or paid to keep their mouth shut so that this didn't reach not only the ears of the Republic, but the ears of the separatists that their own companies that they are representing are in fact building this army for their enemies. So that's my theory on that. Anyway, I'm just rambling. Jeremy's falling asleep.
No, I'm doing something else, but not related to podcast. But yeah. Anything else?
No, I guess we can end it.
All right. Well, thank you all for tuning in. We'll see you next time on Star Wars Legends.
Bye.